Welcome to the Drew Grimaldi podcast. I appreciate everybody being here today. We have a very special guest on the podcast today. He is the CEO and founder of a paid protester firm called Crowds on Demand. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Adam Swart. Adam, thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, Drew, thanks so much for having me. Great to be with you and your audience on this beautiful Saturday morning.
It's beautiful here too. I'm in Michigan, so it's like 60 degrees here today, so we really can't complain. We got a good football weekend ahead of us, so well, hey, I appreciate you being here. So let me ask you something. So how many, like, what would you say the percentage of the No Kings protests were paid protests?
Well, Drew, it depends on how you define paid protest, because I think that people have to unpack this issue a little bit further, because I think people say, okay, there's people who are paid cash and there are people who are there completely genuine. And the reality is it's a spectrum, and there are people who have a ton of incentives to be at any kind of protest. So a lot of people are there because their labor unions tell them. I mean, you are like in the state of Michigan, right? It's a union forward state. And right. I know a lot of union people and unions tend to side with Democratic groups, right? So the union heads say, hey, we're expecting you to come out to this rally for Harris or whatever the candidate is, right? And if you go, we're going to give you good shifts. It's implied. They don't, it's not a direct threat. And if you don't go, you're going to get bad shifts, right? You're not going to rise up the hierarchy, right? So they've been doing this for years, right? So a lot of these times when you see people outside a rally, a lot of these guys are people who are pushed by their union. I'm just talking to a firefighter the other day who was telling me about this, and he's kind of a middle of the road, not political, and he was told he had to go to this Harris rally, right, when Kamala was running, right? And
wow, that's crazy.
Like, I'm not even for Trump. I just don't want to go to Harris, right?
Right.
So this is kind of a tactic. Now, in fairness, like a lot of the mega churches, those type of groups for the Republican side, right? They're the pastors, all those type of folks are bringing out their congregation out there in the Republican groups, right? So any kind of organization tries to push it, right? Additionally, you have to keep in mind, so when you see something in Washington, D.C., there are 15,000 Capitol Hill staffers, right? Both Republicans and Democrats, almost more or less 50-50, right? So when you see a press conference or you see a rally in Washington, D.C., you have to understand that 15,000 of those people, the staffers, may be essentially paid to be there. I mean, it's not directly part of your job as a Hill staffer to attend a rally, but would you want to be like, Senator, sorry, I can't go to your press conference? Like, probably not, right? So if you see Ocasio-Cortez or Ted Cruz or whoever out there, with a rally, right, the people there essentially work for their own staff, right? So
Gotcha.
Potentially, right? So the thing to understand is that there are a lot of sort of what I call ulterior motives. And again, a lot of the union people might genuinely support Democrats. A lot of Capitol Hill staffers might genuinely support the people they're rallying for. A lot of the people who are coming from the church groups might genuinely support Republicans too. But the ultimate reason for their presence was because they were told to be there.
Interesting.
Right? Now, we do at Crowds on Demand, this is all sort of a long tangent, but it's all to say that what we do at Crowds on Demand is we turn out genuine, passionate supporters. Yes, we pay them. Now, I like to think that the compensation we give them is enough to convince them to turn out and to, take the time on their day to show up for something, but not so much that it encourages them to abandon their core convictions. So
gotcha.
If you're my question, Drew, and your audience can think it to themselves, if you're paid $100, $200, $250, would you attend a political rally and chant and cheer and hold signs for something that you completely disagreed with? I'm guessing you and your audience would say, no, I wouldn't do that.
Probably not, no.
So I feel like, yes. Now, if somebody were to pay you $100,000, maybe that you would, but obviously, like that's not what we're paying,
Right.
right, for protesters. So the thing is that ultimately, if you actually unpack it, I totally understand that, and part of this is why I go on like podcasts and shows is I think part of people's gut Floyd matter. People,
Right.
but like the Real Housewives of Orange County were out left, right? Do you
Right.
think these know anything about institutional racism or whatever that is, right?
Probably
They don't
not.
know. They
Right.
just know this is popular. I need to be there. I need to post it on Instagram that I was there so that I can flex for my followers and show that I'm like up on the movement, right?
Right.
So all of which to say, and obviously like these guys have huge followings on social media, but even the people who don't have the huge followings are still going to be there, right? And they want to post to their 1,000 followers, hey, here I was there, to my 500 followers, or here I was there, right? So all of which to say is there's that. But the other thing is, and you asked about No Kings, and one thing that is interesting about No Kings is, and I think it's important to
Who's
recognize that
paying
No
for
No.
all of this is my biggest question. Who's
Oh
paying
yeah,
for all?
a ton of groups are paying. I mean, you can't like. Let me put it this way, Drew. Simply, if you want to have a rally that has thousands of participants, you have to have money. You know why? Because if you're going to block off a street and you're going to sort of have any kind of rally that involves X number plus of participants, it depends by the city, you need a permit, right? So you go to the city, you ask for a permit. And now, the city is not supposed to care what your ideology is, right? It could be
Right.
neo-Nazi, it could be Palestine, it could be whatever, right? But at the end of the day, what they do have to ask you is, do you have bathrooms, right? Do you have medical? Do you have security, right? They will ask you to, and if you don't have those things checked off, they're not supposed to give you a permit, right? So, by the way, if you want to get event medical, that's thousands of dollars. If you want to get bathrooms, porta potties, even the crappy ones, right? No pun intended.
Yeah.
Right? Expensive.
Right.
So these add up. So someone, and then amplified sound. You need amplified sound system. I mean, like, have you ever hosted an event with amplified sound? I mean,
It's
like,
expensive.
you literally, it's thousands and thousands of dollars. You got to have the audio tech and all this stuff. I mean, so all I'm saying is inherently, these are expensive, right? So even if you say that you didn't kind of pay any of the participants, this is an expensive endeavor. Now, of course, this is the United States of America. So money is part of politics, right? So let's be honest and not try to kind of be naive as to think that money isn't part of our politics on both sides, right? There's a ton of money for MAGA. There's a ton of money on the left, right? Let's not kind of pretend, oh, this is the Republicans, oh, this is the Democrats, right?
Who pays for more of it? Like who do you think has more protests, the Democrats or the Republicans? Like paid protests is what I mean.
Oh, well, I think that it's interesting. So in terms of I can speak for our clients, and then I can also speak for more broadly. I want to be clear that we are not like solely like a liberal group. We work with liberal, conservative, and a lot of our clients are non-political. And we're really, really proud about that, by the way. Because I'm a big free speech advocate. And the way that the metric that I use is, number one, is this like, we obviously wouldn't work for anything hateful, and I define in my mind what's hateful, but also, we wouldn't work with anything that's just not effective or not common sense, right? I like to think of myself as a very pragmatic, common sense person, right? So that's how I think of it, right? So then, we tend to be an oppositional strategy, right? So if you are the establishment, you tend not to need to organize protests. You're already getting what you want, right? So in the sense of, in the Biden years, we worked way more for conservatives, right? So why? Because the Democrats were in power. So the other thing you have to keep in mind is, when it comes to protests, the liberals have the left has an edge for a few reasons, and this is why conservatives actually often do need to hire protesters from us. Number one, if you're a hippie with a trust fund, right, you can go to as many protests as you want, right? Mom and dad are paying. I mean, just if you're like Mom Donnie or that type of person, or they just elected a Marxist in Seattle, kind of in the same bill, like another trust fund Marxist, right? So if you're a trust fund Marxist, right, you can go to as many protests as you want and feel like you're standing up for the little guy or whatever, right? But if you are a person who has a job and is a provider and has a family, and conservatives are more likely to have those things, it is the opportunity cost. So in economics, that's sort of what it would cost to do something, right? What is much higher for a conservative, because the conservative has to take off work, which might not be easy. The conservative has to attend, go out there, drive somewhere, park somewhere.
Right. We do tend to have jobs.
Right. So more like that.
And a family.
And by the way, Drew, I'm not even saying this to insult.
Oh, no, it's not insulting. I agree with you 100%.
And the liberals are often more likely to have flex jobs, right? So it's not the liberals.
Or two jobs.
Liberals don't work.
I'm just kidding.
But liberals are more like that. So like tech workers, for example, have flexibility, right? So a tech worker can say, I'm Tuesday afternoon, I'm going out to attend a protest, or they can just say like, no, don't schedule me any meetings Tuesday afternoon, right? But your traditional blue or white collar job doesn't allow you to do that. Or if you are a fast food worker, for example, or an hourly worker, and you take off time, that time is money, right? So maybe you can take off the time, but there's an opportunity cost. So if you look at the people who, and then simultaneously, right? So basically, liberals have kind of an edge. Plus, liberals have more of a culture of protest, right? Like, Vietnam or whatever. The liberals have more of a culture of it. So the problem is, what you have is in so many of these important issues, town meetings, city council meetings, liberals are totally dominate in terms of the turnout. And it creates a false impression that is reflective of public sentiment. So sometimes we do come there to illustrate the conservative position, or in many cases, just the common sense position. It's not even liberal or conservative. I mean, when the LA City Council, for example, was adopting a measure that I think we'd all consider pretty fair, like common sense, like no sex offenders camping near elementary school. So if you are a child sex offender, you cannot camp in your tent near an elementary school.
Makes sense.
I think any kind. So I was like, I don't really know anyone in my life, and I know a lot of liberals and a lot of conservatives who are like, no, they should be able to be next to the school. But you'd be surprised. There were, I think, hundreds of people who stormed and shut down the LA City Council in favor, because they said that was wrong, to stop the child sex offenders from camping outside of schools, right? So it's just sort of like, the point being that, like, a lot of times a small vocal minority gets its way, and a lot of people falsely think crowds on demand helps the small vocal minority, when in more cases than not, we actually stand up for the will of the majority, not the small vocal minority.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So how did you get into something like this? Like what did you just see an opportunity? You said, you know what, hey, I'm going to start, hiring people to go protest. Like, how'd you get into something like this?
Yeah. So when I was a student at UCLA, and this was about 13 years ago, is when I started the company. And what's kind of funny is, like, okay, I used to work for a lot of political campaigns, mostly on the left-wing Democratic side, right? And I kind of over time became disillusioned with sort of the hypocrisy and idiocy of the left, and more and more so pardon me, I consider myself much an independent today. But at the time, the people running those Democrat campaigns in the early 2010s were people who came of college age in the 60s. So they're used to the idea of you post some flyers on the quad and 5,000 students show up. So they would always be like, Adam, let's organize a rally of 10,000 students. And it's like, well, in 2011, that's a lot harder than it would have been in, 1969, right? So, but we noticed the power of people showing up. I mean, in the sense of, we were operating from a position of 2011 as like Kamala would come to campus and speak, and there'd be 5 people in the attendance. Like, you're talking about, like, I mean, because she was or like Gavin Newsom would come and there'd be 10 people in attendance, right? People you're well aware of who were involved in California politics. And that was very embarrassing. They would be very upset about that. Kamala and Gavin like would hate that. They were pissed. Like, I remember she came once to campus. She was pissed because so few people were there.
Kamala.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So the point is that, so then I got to thinking, okay, well, we got to figure out a way to incentivize these students to go. So I remember we were able to do that in a lot of cases, and in other cases, even more so with protests, right? Because in the case of protests, it's even sometimes we would always say more effective, because someone else could be hosting a rally with 500, 1,000 people. You could have 10 or 20 protesters outside. If you have the right slogans, you will get equal media time with the candidate, right? So in the sense of, someone's hosting 1,000-person rally, the news is obviously there covering, but then they're going to cover the protesters too. So you have 1-2% of the manpower, and yet you have equal media coverage. So it's a great investment, but of course the campaigns did not pay very well, and they really didn't pay well at that time. So I was like, you know what? I'm in LA. What do I have in LA? We have a bunch of out of work actors, right? What I put them to work kind of as crowd filler for, companies or audiences or whatever, right? So now obviously we don't really source actors for political events anymore. We're sourcing people who are passionate about the subject. But at the time, I didn't really care. Like, to tell you the truth, Drew, I didn't really care who I was working with, what I was doing. As long as it was legal, I would just do it, right? Because, I mean, by the way, if you're starting a business, just a little advice, like, that's kind of how you have to launch a business. Like, you can't be too selective. As you move on, you can be more selective. So I'll take any client, person, and as long as it was legal, and I would kind of pack rooms with as many bodies as we could get, right? Now people, maybe rightly, maybe wrongly, kind of critiqued me quite harshly as, ethical critiques, which is fine. But I don't care about people's ethical critiques. I care about what I want to be. And what really inspired me to kind of move the business model to being more focused on genuine participation and genuine supporters is the division that we see in this country. And I don't want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of actually helping people get involved and participate.
Right. Be part of the, the democratic process, so to say, right? So how concerned should we be that foreign actors are coming in and pushing bad ideas?
Yeah, we should be. But the bigger thing that we should be concerned is that they may be funding violence. That would be the bigger concern, honestly.
Interesting. Like, so you think these foreign actors are coming in and they're financing these massive, riots and protests?
Yeah, well, I think specifically, they might be funding the violent elements within the movements, right? So I think, because it's important that we don't engage in what's called reductio ad absurdum, right? So that's reducing it to the most absurd part. So I don't think all Trump supporters should be reduced to the actions of a few violent people on January 6th, right? I don't think most Palestine supporters should be reduced to the actions of a few of those people who were harassing and attacking Jewish students. So that doesn't mean we have to agree with everybody, but I actually think what the foreign actors want to do is actually create more division by having violence present and then spurring a reaction, because what they want, it's important to, I know how much you've traveled abroad, but I've traveled a lot to these kind of different countries, including the autocratic countries. And one of the things that scares the autocratic leaders is that their own people want democracy and freedom.
Do you think, I apologize to interrupt, but do you think January 6th was like that, where they had a mostly peaceful protest and then you had these bad actors pay for this violence, and then everybody kind of reacted, and that's what happened on January 6th?
Well, look, I think that has to. I mean, I think the Democrats, first of all, missed an opportunity to have an objective January 6th committee that could have investigated, because I think it really did merit like a fair investigation. And by
Right.
not having,
Well, I think we might get that now too, though. We might.
I hope so. But I hope that won't be one sided on the other side either. Like
Fair.
I'm just like, so the problem is I don't want a Republican led and I don't want a Democrat led. I want
Right.
just very, very fair, that where you don't have a motivation. Like, to me, I that's who I am. I'm not a shill for either party. I have pretty much contempt for the establishment of both parties. So
That's fair.
So and I think I'm actually in the majority of American like viewpoints on that. So I just want to know what happened, and because the liberals played it to their advantage, but I also think that I'm not going to get the fair story from the other side. So but in regards to January 6th, I think there were very, very bad actors involved. I mean, some of the stuff that the pre-planning stage that I've read is bad, but do I think that there could have been people who were spurred and entrapped in that situation by law enforcement? Absolutely. I believe that is the case. I mean, this started, they did this to the civil rights movement. The law enforcement, they like what they do at the entrapment is what they do is, and it's a very unethical strategy. And we need to put an end to it. Is you take some people who might be kind of low IQ, very impressionable, you get them really like who are already passionate about a subject, but then you have your agent radicalize them further and come up with this sort of plan that's like more violent. You get them to like recruit more people into this violent plan. And then, but the law enforcement is the one that's spurring on the violent plan, not these people. Most of these people are very low IQ people, not in a derisive way, but like we're talking like a Forrest Gump kind of thing.
Right.
So, I mean, and the Bush administration did this to innocent Muslims too.
That's why they still have that black eye. For the Republican Party had a black eye from the Bush years. It was. And that's why, and it's funny because Bush gave us, W gave us Barack Obama gave us Trump. And there was an old political saying where they said, the pendulum never stops in the middle. It always swings one way and then swings way back the other way.
Correct. And I think the further it swings one way, the further it'll swing the other way. And the reason why why Biden swung way too far to the left, and now this administration is sort of doing other things that I disagree with. So my feeling is, and both Trump and Biden, I think, have not stood up for free speech, and I'm very disappointed with both of them on that, because free speech is who we are as Americans.
I agree. We have to be able to say, things that piss each other off. And we got to be able to reflect on that, like we're never going to always agree on everything, but you got to be able to have the conversation civilly, and right. Yep, 100%. And I think that's
so in regards to all these type of rallies, what I fear in regards to foreign interference is what they're trying to do is they want to create violence on American streets, because then they could essentially take those videos of the tear gas, Molotov cocktails, and say, look, democracy is so messy, you don't really want this,
right
to their people, because the primary goal of this, yes, is weakening the United States geopolitically, but it's mostly so that the people of those countries, of their countries, will see that America is like a shithole, and that's what they want. They want their own people to think America is a shithole, because if their people think America's a shithole, then they won't be asking for rights.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, you go to other countries and they wave the U.S. flag for freedom,
Yeah, and it's not because they love America. It's because they want what we have, by the way. So
it's the freedom. They
don't necessarily love America. I mean, props to them for fighting for their own democracy, but they're not waving American flags because they love everything America is doing. But they see the pictures of America. They see the lifestyle that even less well-off people live in America, and they say, wow, there must be doing something right, and we must be doing something wrong.
Right. So who do you think the foreign agitators are? Is there like a country behind a lot of these, What country's
All
behind
the
it?
people you think, all the countries that you think are doing it to some degree, in my opinion. Um, and the way that they do it is what I call rush it through Russian dolls, right? So basically, you have a foreign country that's hostile, right? All these countries, by the way, they have their intelligence services. They have dummy corps in the United States with bank accounts, right?
Right.
So the corporation can easily make some contribution to a 501c4, like a 501c4, then the 501c4 makes a contribution to an academic program that then pays another company that then buys the Molotov cocktails or whatever, right?
Right.
So these countries are easily capable of financing this type of thing, especially because it's not like we're talking about billions of dollars. We're probably more talking about millions of dollars, right?
Gotcha. So, do you think that do you think that these foreign actors are trying to influence U.S. policy through these types of things? Like, oh, look at the violence, you know, try to weaken the stronger side, or like the different opponents, in different candidates. Do you see a lot of that in, like, we talk about some of these like smaller races, like DAs, stuff like that. Like, I don't know.
Really involved in. I mean, I don't think that they care a great deal if we're talking about foreign. I don't think they care a great deal about the specifics of local politics, with some exceptions. I mean, for example, there was just a recent investigative piece out showing how China, for example, is very interested because they want to kneecap people who are China skeptics before they even get to high office. So, like, people were asking, like, okay, well, why is China does China care about some New York State Senate race, right? Like, in theory, New York State Senate has nothing to do with foreign relations, right? Anything that would impact China. But essentially, China is like, look, if we have these people who are China skeptics and they're in the state Senate, well, what is the next step from the state Senate is Congress, and we don't want people. So even city council, state house, county supervisors, China is playing the long game because, of course, the Chinese are very sophisticated, right? They want to kneecap politicians who are China skeptics before they ever get to high office, right? So I think for when it comes to countries like China, you have that, right? But then when it comes to other actors, I think the goal is more to foment chaos on the streets of the United States and for their domestic consumption.
Gotcha. So let me ask you this. So if somebody was looking to get involved and do a paid protest, what would that process look like? If I wanted to get involved, I wanted to do something like this, how would I reach out? How would I get involved?
You mean as like a protester or to organize a protest?
To like organize a protest, for example.
Well, so basically, first of all, you would reach out to us via our website, crowdsondemand.com, and you would kind of outline what it is that you're looking to achieve, right? And we keep all information confidential, as you can imagine. And we sometimes clients will come to us and say, look, we know exactly what the vision is. We want this rally on this date with these costumes and these signs. We just need you to essentially provide the people for it, right? And in other cases, people will come to us and say, look, the state assembly is pushing this crazy bill that would do these crazy things. We need to campaign against it and get people kind of convinced against it. And in that case, we would start from the planning stage and say, okay, who are the people we need to persuade? That's one of the big things I always try to do is one of the things that, and I'll give some free advice to your listeners, is one of the things that people do that's not very smart in advocacy is they are not pinpointed with who they're actually trying to persuade, right? So let's just say there's this bill, right, that you really don't like in the state assembly, right? Or the state, whatever the state legislature is, right? So you say, okay, well, I really don't like it. Well, there's no point in protesting the bill's author, right? You're not going to convince them that their own bill is bad, right? You have to figure out who are the people who are in the middle, right? Who are persuadable for whatever reason. And then you want to go out and say, well, who are the people that those people listen to? So here's a state senator who is in the middle, but okay, maybe we protest or persuade their donors, right? Or their backers, their, supporters, right? So figure out who the people are and the levers that you can lean on to get the job done, right? So it's like, I always find it funny when people are like, we're going to protest the Los Angeles City Council again to protest Donald Trump. It's like, well, I don't think there's a single Republican on the LA City Council. Like, why are you are you protesting them about Donald Trump, right?
Right,
They have nothing to do with Trump. So in the sense of, but a lot of times people are stupid. So it's important to be focused in your advocacy on the people who have the power to help you and who are theoretically persuadable, right? It's the equivalent of like, if you're on a flight and it's delayed and you start screaming at the flight attendant, it's like as if the flight attendant has any power to make your flight go on time, right? They can't. Right. So it's kind of like, it's the same concept when you are kind of barking up the wrong tree in terms of advocacy.
Interesting. Well, I think Zoom is yelling at me because I got the free version. It's telling me that we got that time. I appreciate you so much for being here. Thank you for your time. You were very interesting. Everybody go check out crowdsondemand.com. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you so much, Drew.
Hey, I appreciate you. Thanks again. All right. So that was an interesting one. He was a good guest. Answered a lot of questions that we had in terms of paid protests at a lot of these crazy places. Well, we were just talking, for example, about Zohran Mamdani and how different protesters and stuff like that. So Mamdani is talking about all these things that he wants to do, but he needs Governor Kathy Hochul's approval to do some of these things. And she's already saying, I don't know about that. So this is Kathy Hochul here. Check this one out.
I'm from Buffalo. We don't put up with a lot of crap. So I just want to set the stage that, you look at the history of people who've run multi-million-dollar ad campaigns to try and get me to change my position. I don't change my position. So I just want to put it out there. I respect people's opinions. I respect the proper place to convey them. And so I've said to people, I hear you. And that was important. But also, there's a time and place. And so that's all on that. No, I've had conversations on this trip, but many conversations, I'd say over the summer and the fall, that were important, that led to an understanding of what's in the realm of possibility, shared ambitions, but what is doable is the question. And so, no, we're aligned on so many of these issues. I've made
what's doable?
I have strong disagreements with issues that really do not pertain to, the governance of New York City. I've said you need to get a police commissioner that people trust, who has a record of accomplishment to keep the trajectory that we're on right now, which is crime is going down. Crime is going down.
It is not going down.
You don't say.
If it is going down, it's because we're taking illegals off the streets.
So him agreeing with that assessment, that recommendation to keep Jessica Tisch, was an important statement on many fronts. So I'm looking forward to, having our teams keep a lot of conversations with our teams. We said we'd be talking, I'm meeting him very soon to talk about our response if there is a surge of ICE agents and National Guard that do come, perhaps after his inauguration, and how we can be proactive in preventing that from happening. And that's the state I'm in right now, prevent that from happening. So we've had a lot of conversations. So no, I think there's a mutual respect, and that's gonna, I think, only grow deeper.
So essentially, this is like, reality sets in for Mamdani supporters when she says, you need to start looking at things realistically here, because if you don't look at them realistically, like free everything, taxing the rich, if you tax billionaires like they want to, those guys are going to leave so fast. And then who's going to pay for all your shit programs? But I wanted to play this last week, but the link it keeps disappearing on me because I think people are trying. I think the UK is really trying to make this disappear. But the UK many years ago opened up all their borders and they flooded their country with illegal immigrants. And now they're running into a problem where they're losing their own culture. They're losing their own values because it's becoming mostly foreigners from like Muslim countries. And so this right here is a World War II vet saying that his sacrifice was not worth it to see what the UK has become today. And it's kind of a sad thing that he feels this way, but it's also true, and I understand it. Check it out.
What is your message?
My message is, I can see in my mind's eye there was rows and rows of white stones of all the hundreds of my friends and everybody else that gave their lives for what? The country of today. No, I'm sorry. The sacrifice wasn't worth the result that it is now.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
What do you mean by that, though?
What we fought for, and what we fought for was our freedom. We find that even now it's darn sight worse than what it was when I fought for it.
Oh, Alec, I'm
They're
sorry
arresting
you feel
people
like that because I want you to know
for
all
memes.
the generations that have come since, including me and my children, are so grateful for your bravery and all that for service personnel. And it's our job now, isn't it, to make it the country that you fought for. You absolutely fought for.
Is it.
And we will do. We want to...
I'm so wonderful to know there are people like you that can spread the word around.
We will do.
Younger generation.
And I guarantee that everybody watching at home will be wanting you to send lots of love. We've got another little bit special thing for you, Alec. We've got the D-Day darlings here. Come on over, guys. You've got a little special present for him. Ooh. Come and give it if you...
So, he wasn't too impressed, but they've opened their country to all these foreigners, and then if you say, hey, I don't agree with transgender ideology because you shouldn't be pushing that in schools. If I don't agree or even a religious, for example, or I don't agree with what the government of the United Kingdom is doing, they will arrest you for a bad meme, for quote unquote inciting violence. And they're arresting journalists, comedians. But the right to free speech is me being able to say something that pisses you off. And that's what it's about, and that's what we fight for. We fight for the right to give our free speech. So the government shutdown has finally ended. It was the longest in history, and you got the Democrats caved. They took the same exact bill that was put in front of them 35 days earlier during the government shutdown, and they decided to play the United States Americans as pawns. Here's Senator Dick Durbin, a Democrat, saying that his party waged war on Americans to try, and they lost.
They're unhappy. They think we should have kept our government closed indefinitely to protest the policies of the Trump administration. I share their opinions of this administration, but cannot accept a strategy which wages political battle at the expense of my neighbor's paycheck or the food for his children. Mr. President, I yield the floor. Many of my friends are unhappy. They think we should have kept our government closed indefinitely.
I mean, he says it. A lot of my friends are not happy. They think we should have kept the government closed. Really? You're trying to hurt all these people? So so I've talked about this on other shows. So Senator John Fetterman his party's talking about primarying him because he voted all the time to open the government. And he says it was wrong when the Republicans tried to shut down the government, and it's wrong when we're trying to shut down the government. And the Democrats, they want him dead. I'm not kidding. He says this. He says, what the Republicans have said about me are mean. But the reaction from my own party They want me dead. Check this out. John Fetterman, in his own words, on CNN. Here he
Drunk
is.
deeply of the venom of both the left and the right. As a connoisseur, I can confirm that the most poisonous, the bitterest, is from the far left. That is pretty remarkable to hear you say that as an elected Democrat. Why?
No. It's just been my personal experience on this thing. And when I asked my digital team, I said, we're on all the platforms. Really, what's kind of the harshest? What's kind of the most personal? And the answer was immediate. He said, "Oh, blue sky. It's blue sky." And the difference is, the right would say really rough things and names. Some names I won't repeat on TV, but the on the left, it was like they want me to die, or that we're cheering for your next stroke, or that's terrible that depression won. Why couldn't it depression won? And I hope your kids find you. They even have like the graphic, a GIF where they have like a stroke, in your head, cheering at that. Yeah, and they said that. I remember one. They claimed, the doctor let us down, and why did they have to save his life? Just really, I just can't imagine. People are wishing, I wish he dies, or I want him to die. Literally cheering for a stroke.
His own party, because he voted against them, want him dead. That's fucking sick, people. That says something about your constituents, that these people are nuts. And to be honest with you, and then here's another one. Democrat Raphael Warnock, the guy that ran over his wife, ex-wife now, that beat Kelly Loeffler, I believe. This one right here, he was one of the ones that voted to keep the government open. And his party also shit on him. So he's out here now. He's apologizing for keeping the government open.
On Sunday night. But I thought it was important for me to take a moment to explain what all of this means. The bottom line is the budget that passed the Senate Sunday night does not fully fund health care. I have said from the beginning that I would not support a budget that does not address this healthcare crisis created by President Trump. And last night, I stood by that promise. Because of this budget, more than 1 million Georgians will see their healthcare go up, and they are understandably disappointed. Because as they look at their healthcare premiums having doubled, tripled, quadrupled, they will have to make tough decisions about their family budget. And the truth is, some will find that healthcare is unaffordable, and they will lose.
Okay, I'm going to pause this for just a second because it's important for me to make this note that the Obamacare premiums were set to go up this year anyways. But because of COVID, they put in these subsidies that brought down the price of the premiums artificially during COVID. So the Democrats, they shut down the government to keep these subsidies to Obamacare, essentially holding the government hostage for unless the president of the United States decided to bail out their failure of Obamacare. And that is what he's saying right here.
But here's the thing. There still are opportunities to lower healthcare costs for families all across Georgia. And here's my promise. I'm going to use every tool I have to fight for you and for your families. And so I urge you, please do not give in to those who are trying to weaponize despair. They're trying to convince us that we cannot win. Here's what I know. I know that we can win when we stand together. So I need you to be with me in this fight. We have less than a year before the midterm elections next year. And so now is the time to organize. Now is the time to stand up and fight. Know that I'll be standing.
And the rest is bullshit. But I digress. So he voted to keep the government open and then issued an apology to his party for voting for doing the right friggin' thing. So I wanted to show you guys this one here. So we have been pretty vocal about the COVID vaccine mandates and a lot of these things. And I pray to God that me talking about this right now doesn't get my YouTube channel banned again. But we're going to try. So this one right here, ladies and gentlemen, is 12 months. In the 12 months of 2022, 1,598 athletes of young ages died of heart attacks. This right here is crazy, people. Check this one out. Here we go. Watch this one.
Interfacing with the shots, it's true. DARPA research and the operational programs to infect us with remote controllable prion clusters in the brain before they even rolled out COVID. I just got chills. This is so evil. I mean, this is how you take over. You colonize people. You implant everybody with these, whether you've had the shot or not. It's everywhere. You get these proteins growing in you. They hit you with the frequency, and it looks like you died of a stroke. Man, this is bad. All over your brain, hit you with it. Bzzz, crystals grow in the next few days, cut through arteries, cut through veins, cut through capillaries, stroke out. Or he says we can just hit them with a light dose and just fog everybody out and make them sick where they can't think straight.
Or, you know, what they call long COVID. Alex Jones was right. Again, go figure. But let's not forget what they did during COVID, especially what the media did, because it was sick. It was sick what they did. And, you know, that was the thing. And that's one of the reasons why you really got to pay attention to smaller media, because things get out and we call bullshit on them. This one here, check this one out.
Of the media, some members of the media use their platforms
to push their own personal bias.
To push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
So, like, they all conspired to just push this COVID bullshit and how it was supposed to be so great and so perfect. Well, it wasn't. Moving on. We have the BBC News scandal where the top executives resigned this week because of what they did to a speech by President Trump during January 6th. And they played this just weeks before the 2024 election. But these people blatantly did this, and it's awful. Check this out.
I've just got this in. This is just breaking news, Emma, which relates to this story. We're just hearing that the BBC has apologised to Donald Trump over the editing of a speech which appeared on Panorama in 2024, adding it was an error of judgment and the programme will not be broadcast again in this form on any BBC platform. So that's the BBC apologising directly to the President of the United States over the editing of a speech that appeared on Panorama in 2024. But Emma, by the sounds of it, there might be another apology to make.
Yeah, so that was the one that's caused such a furore over the last week or so that resulted on Sunday night in the Director General of the...
So they got caught splicing two videos together, or two sentences together that were 54 minutes apart. And actually, it's funny that they say this on here too, because you can legitimately, let me see if I can find this quick. But it's BBC Trump, like the edit that they did here is absolutely disgusting. Here it is. Check this out. This is their edit.
Senators and congressmen and women, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them. We're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we fight. We fight like hell.
And we fight. Those two parts that they edited there were 54 minutes apart. The most dishonest reporting on anything I've ever seen in my life. Here's my last video for you. I think this is absolutely hilarious. This is a Chicago bus tour that goes terribly wrong. And this is the one I'm going to end with because I think it's absolutely hilarious. Check this out here, folks. Check this out. So this right here. So these people are on this bus in Chicago. First of all, it's like they're looking at homeless people, you know, on the side of the road. But, oh my God, this is so funny. I died. Check this.
On your right is the east edge of Garfield Park. This block is controlled by one of the older crews, and you can see the tags on the brickwork marking their territory. Those pops you hear are most likely 9mm.
Those pops you're hearing are most likely 9mm. Oh my God. But, you know, hey, keep the National Guard out of Chicago because there's no problem with violence. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the Drew Grimaldi podcast. Check us out next week at 11 a.m. on Saturday. We shall return. Thank you so much for listening, and you guys go out and have a great week. Have a great one.